Listen up, because what I witnessed on Sportcenter last night is going to completely change how you view Jalen Brunson and this Knicks season. We're not talking about some minor adjustments here. We're talking about a complete transformation that has MVP written all over it. So I'm watching this in-depth segment where they're breaking down everything coming out of Knicks training camp, and the footage they showed of Brunson had me literally calling my buddies to tell them to tune in, because this is the kind of stuff that separates championship runs from what-if seasons. The panel started by diving into what Ian Begley reported about Brunson's physical condition coming into camp, and when they put up those side-by-side photos from this year versus last year, the difference was absolutely staggering. We're not just talking about a player who lost a few pounds. This is a complete body transformation that screams elite-level preparation. Brunson told reporters he came in a little more lighter and more toned this season, but those photos tell a much deeper story. This is a player who looked at how last season ended, that devastating conference semifinals loss to the Indiana Pacers, and decided to completely reinvent his approach to preparation. What the Sportcenter crew kept emphasizing throughout the segment, and this is crucial, is how that playoff elimination clearly affected Brunson on a psychological level. They showed clips from various interviews and appearances where you can see he's still processing that disappointment. The analysts were saying you can literally see it in his demeanor. Those one-word answers, that look in his eyes when anyone brings up the Pacers series. But here's what's brilliant about elite competitors. They channel that disappointment into fuel. And everything we're seeing from Brunson suggests that's exactly what happened during the offseason. The broadcast then shifted to Mike Brown's strategic vision for maximizing Brunson's effectiveness. And this is where the analysis got absolutely fascinating from a basketball perspective. Brown was quoted saying, "The biggest thing I want to do for Brunson is to try to get him, as well as everyone else, easy shots." Now that might sound like standard coach speak until you understand what Brown means by easy shots and how dramatically different this is from Tom Thibodeau's approach. Brown specifically mentioned something called spray three, passing from inside the paint out to the perimeter for catch-and-shoot opportunity. The Sportcenter panel did this incredible breakdown, showing how Brunson was criminally underutilized as an off-ball player last season. They pulled up footage from his Dallas days playing alongside Luka Doncic, and the contrast was stark. In Dallas, Brunson was constantly moving without the ball, getting clean looks off screen, operating as a secondary creator rather than having to initiate everything himself. The analysts then showed this devastating graphic comparing points on unassisted shots, and Brunson was literally in a category by himself in the top right corner. Most of his buckets were unassisted, meaning he was creating everything from scratch, rather than getting easy looks within the flow of the offense. The panel was emphasizing how unsustainable that approach is over 82 games and a playoff run. Even the greatest shot creators need help from their system and teammates to maintain efficiency. This is where the Jordan Clarkson and Malcolm Brogdon acquisitions become absolutely crucial, and the Sportcenter breakdown of these moves was brilliant. Both players showed up on that same graphic as guys who can create unassisted buckets for themselves, which immediately takes pressure off Brunson. But more importantly, both are underrated playmakers who can handle secondary creation duties. The panel was particularly excited about Clarkson's ability to handle the ball and create advantages, which means Brunson doesn't have to be the only guy initiating offense. Brown's three-point shooting philosophy became a major focal point of the segment, and this is where you can see how dramatically different this season is going to look. Brown told reporters that if the team gets up 40-plus three-point attempts per game, he's completely fine with that, as long as they're good shots. The Sportcenter crew pulled up the numbers showing the Knicks only attempted 36.9 threes per game last season, ranking 27th in the league. That's absolutely criminal when you have shooters like Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby on your roster. The analysts spent significant time analyzing why the Knicks were so ineffective from three last season, despite having elite shooters, and their conclusions were damning for the previous coaching staff. Part of it was lineup construction. Starting Josh Hart, who teams don't respect as a three-point threat, automatically clogs spacing. But the bigger issue was systemic. There was no coherent plan for generating clean three-point looks within the offensive structure. Karl Anthony Towns' comments about the new system were absolutely revealing, and the Sportcenter panel broke down every word. Towns compared what Brown wants to do for Brunson to how the Warriors create opportunities for Steph Curry. That's not hyperbole. That's a specific strategic framework. Towns talked about using screens and constant movement to create space for Brunson, getting him clean looks at the rim and easier shooting opportunity. The broadcast then dove into the conditioning and preparation aspects that are going to be crucial for this system to work. Brown's offense requires constant movement, and players have to be in elite physical condition to execute it properly. The panel showed footage from those optional workouts where Brunson has apparently embraced this new approach completely. Brown was quoted saying, "Brunson seems like he's embraced it because you have to be in great condition in order to play this way." See, here's where the psychological transformation becomes even more important than the physical one. And this is something the Sportcenter analysts kept coming back to throughout the segment. After that painful playoff exit, Brunson could have made excuses or pointed fingers. Instead, he looked in the mirror, completely revamped his preparation, and bought into a new system that requires him to play differently than he ever has before. The panel then started projecting what this could mean for Brunson's individual numbers and MVP candidacy, and their analysis was compelling. If Brown can successfully reduce Brunson's time of possession while maintaining or increasing his efficiency, those are exactly the kinds of improvements that catch MVP voters' attention. Chris Persian's reporting that Brunson led the NBA in time of possession per game last season provides the perfect baseline for measuring improvement. What really struck me about the Sportcenter coverage was how they connected all these tactical changes to the bigger picture of Eastern Conference competition. With Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton missing time to start the season, there's a legitimate argument that Brunson is the second-best player in the East, behind only Giannis Antetokounmpo. If the Knicks get off to a strong start while those other stars are sidelined, Brunson could establish himself in the MVP conversation early and maintain that momentum throughout the season. The chemistry aspect can't be understated either, and the broadcast did an excellent job highlighting how all these new pieces fit together. Brogdon's ability to defend and create alongside Brunson means they can play together in crucial moments. Clarkson's instant offense gives them a legitimate sixth man who can carry scoring loads when the starters rest. Towns' shooting ability spaces the floor in ways that create driving lanes for everyone. But what emerged most clearly from the entire Sportcenter segment was this sense of organizational alignment and purpose that hasn't existed in New York for years. Brown has a clear vision for how he wants to play. The front office acquired players who specifically fit that vision. Brunson has completely bought in and transformed his preparation accordingly. When you have that kind of top-to-bottom commitment to a shared goal, special things can happen. The timing couldn't be more perfect either. Brunson is entering his prime years. The roster construction is the best it's been in decades, and the Eastern Conference is more wide open than it's been in recent memory. The Sportcenter panel was unanimous in their excitement about what this could mean for New York basketball. And honestly, after seeing all the evidence they presented, I'm completely bought in. This isn't just about Brunson having a good season. This is about the Knicks potentially becoming a legitimate championship contender for the first time in decades. That's what went down on Sportcenter last night. And I'm telling you, this story is just getting started. Hold up. What I witnessed on Sportcenter last night is going to completely change how you view this Knicks season. And I'm not talking about some surface-level coaching adjustments here. This is a full-scale organizational transformation happening in real time, and we're only 2 days into training camp. Marshall Green was breaking down day 2 of Knicks camp on the broadcast, and the insights coming out of that facility are absolutely mind-blowing. Mike Brown isn't just tweaking things around the edges. He's fundamentally rewiring the DNA of how this basketball team operates, and the ripple effects are already visible to anyone paying close attention. So, I'm watching this segment unfold, and Marshall starts diving into what Miles McBride told the media after practice. And immediately, you can tell something's different about the energy surrounding this team. McBride's quote hit me like a freight train. A lot more player movement, ball movement. Last year, at times, we got stagnant, and we depended on a lot of isolation shots, which is tough down the stretch. This year, it's going to be a little more freedom with the movement and a lot of guys cutting, guys getting active. TT, now listen. When a role player like McBride is this articulate about schematic differences after just 2 days of practice, that tells you the coaching staff has been crystal clear about their vision and implementation. But here's what really caught my attention during the SportsCenter breakdown. This isn't just about X's and O's. Mitchell Robinson, who's been in this league for 8 years and played under 3 different head coaches, dropped this bombshell. He's putting in a lot of new things that I've never seen before. 8 years in the NBA, multiple coaching staffs, and he's seeing concepts he's never encountered. That's not incremental improvement, that's revolutionary change. The panel was emphasizing how Mike Brown represents a complete stylistic departure from everything Robinson has experienced as a Knick. And the implications of that statement are staggering when you really think about it. The SportsCenter crew then started breaking down the tactical elements of what Brown is implementing. And this is where the analysis got absolutely fascinating. They're not just trying to play faster. Anyone can tell their team to run more. Brown wants specific types of pace and specific types of spacing. He's obsessed with paint touches, but not in the traditional post-up sense. He wants the ball moving through the paint to create advantages on the perimeter. The analysts explained how this differs fundamentally from Tom Thibodeau's approach, which often relied on isolation plays, with Jalen Brunson creating magic out of nothing, while 4 other guys essentially stood and watched. What Brown is installing sounds like basketball poetry when you hear it described properly. Instead of "give Jalen the ball and get out of the way," it's going to be constant motion, constant screening, constant cutting. McCall Bridges in one corner, OG Anunoby in another, Karl Anthony Towns flowing between the top of the key and various spots on the floor. The SportsCenter panel kept emphasizing this phrase, spray threes, passing from inside the arc to outside the arc for catch-and-shoot opportunities. It sounds simple, but the execution requires a level of basketball IQ and timing that takes months to master. Here's where the strategic brilliance becomes obvious, and the broadcast did an incredible job explaining that. Brown isn't trying to reinvent basketball. He's trying to get the easiest possible shots at the highest possible frequency. Dunks, layups, and corner threes. Those are the 3 most efficient shots in basketball, and he wants this Knicks team hunting those looks relentlessly. The corner 3 specifically became a major talking point because it's the second most efficient shot in the NBA after shots at the rim, and the Knicks now have multiple players who can knock down that shot consistently. But then, the SportsCenter analysis took this incredible turn when they started discussing Mitchell Robinson's role in this new system, and I've got to tell you, this is where things got really interesting. Brown apparently told the media he could scheme up 3 alley-oops every single game for Robinson, calling him one of the best vertical players in the NBA. On paper, that makes perfect sense. Robinson is big, strong, athletic, can jump out of the building. But Marshall made this crucial point during the segment that anyone who watched the playoffs knows. Every time the Knicks passed the ball to Robinson, it felt like an automatic turnover because he couldn't catch the damn thing. The panel was wrestling with this contradiction throughout the segment. In theory, Robinson should be an elite finisher above the rim. In practice, his hands have been questionable, and there are legitimate concerns about whether Jalen Brunson is the type of point guard who excels at threading alley-oop passes. Plus, and this is something the analysts touched on, Robinson's explosiveness isn't quite what it was earlier in his career. So while Brown's vision for Robinson sounds incredible, the execution might be more challenging than anticipated. Then the broadcast shifted to something that I think is even more significant than the tactical changes: the cultural transformation that's already happening. Marshall was explaining how players feel comfortable voicing their opinions and feel like they're actually being heard by Mike Brown. This isn't a subtle difference. This is a fundamental shift in organizational philosophy. The Sportcenter panel made it clear that Tom Thibodeau was very much a my way or the highway type of coach, which has advantages and disadvantages, but it's the polar opposite of Brown's collaborative approach. Miles McBride's comments about Brown's communication style were absolutely telling. He's been communicating with a lot of guys, also allowing a lot more people to talk and to really get a feel for what's going on. The analysts on the show compared this to when players get traded between organizations with completely different cultures. One day, you're in an environment where your voice doesn't matter. The next day, you're encouraged to share your perspective and contribute to the strategic discussion. That type of culture shock can be incredibly energizing for players who felt marginalized or unheard. What really struck me during the Sportcenter segment was how this communication emphasis extended beyond just training camp. The panel detailed how Brown had been building relationships with key players throughout the summer. Dinner with Karl Anthony Towns, phone conversations with Josh Hart, constant communication with Jalen Brunson. This isn't a coach who shows up to training camp and starts implementing his system cold. This is someone who understands that buy-in happens at the relationship level first, then translates to on-court execution. The broadcast then covered some of the practical updates from day 2 of camp, and these details matter more than you might think. Josh Hart was wearing a splint on his right ring finger, the same finger he had surgery on at the end of last season. He told reporters he doesn't want to play with the splint, but will do whatever he has to do. That's the kind of attitude that defines championship cultures, but it also raises questions about how this injury might impact his shooting and ball handling throughout the season. More interesting from a strategic standpoint was the jersey situation. Hart wore a blue jersey, which indicates the starting unit, while Mitchell Robinson wore gray, suggesting he's with the second team. The starting 5 appeared to be Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, Brunson, and Towns, with Robinson coming off the bench. But Brown made it clear that nothing is set in stone. They're going to use training camp and preseason to determine which combinations give them the best chance to win game. Robinson's comments to the media were absolutely fascinating from a personality standpoint, and the Sportcenter panel spent significant time analyzing his mindset. He apparently started a farm in Nashville and is now doing farm-to-table with his diet, raising chicken. When asked about starting versus coming off the bench, his response was classic Robinson. "I don't care. I don't care if I start. I don't care if I come off the bench. I've done both, and I've done well at both of them." The analysts loved his approach. Zero ego about role, just focused on contributing to winning. The broadcast also touched on Robinson's injury management, which is going to be crucial for the Knicks' success this season. It's still to be determined whether he'll play in back-to-back games, and frankly, he probably shouldn't. His injury history is extensive, and the regular season is about staying healthy for a playoff run. If playing him in back-to-backs in January compromises his availability in May, that's backwards thinking. Robinson seems to understand this calculus perfectly. Contract-wise, Robinson is in the final year of his deal with the Knicks, and extension talks have been a topic of conversation. His approach to that situation is refreshingly mature. Let his agent handle the business side while he focuses on basketball. He's played for 3 different head coaches and plans to give Brown the same effort he gave everyone else. That type of professionalism is exactly what championship teams are built on. Here's what really emerged from the Sportcenter coverage. Mike Brown's impact is already visible in multiple dimensions. The offense is going to look completely different. More pace, more ball movement, more player movement, better shot selection. The culture is shifting toward collaboration and communication. The conditioning and preparation standards appear to be elevated. Players are bought into the vision even though they're still learning the system. The panel kept coming back to this statistical comparison that really hammered home the transformation. Last season, the Knicks were 18th in total passes per game. In Brown's final 2 seasons with Sacramento, the Kings were 4th and 2nd in passes per game respectively. That ball is going to be flying around Madison Square Garden this season, creating opportunities that simply didn't exist under the previous system. What fascinated me most about the entire Sportcenter segment was how Brown is balancing innovation with practicality. He's not abandoning isolation plays entirely. This team has talented isolation players, and those skills remain valuable. But isolation is becoming one tool in a much larger toolbox rather than the primary offensive philosophy. The ball movement creates easier isolation opportunities when they do occur, and the constant motion makes those one-on-one situations less predictable for opposing defenses. From a championship perspective, which is ultimately what matters, these changes address some of the fundamental weaknesses that held the Knicks back last season. When the offense became stagnant in crucial moments, when ball movement stopped and they relied too heavily on individual creation, that's when they struggled most. Brown's system should theoretically make them more resilient in those pressure situations because multiple players will be comfortable creating and making decisions rather than everything flowing through one or two guys. The timing couldn't be better either. Karl Anthony Towns brings a skill set that perfectly complements what Brown wants to do offensively. Mikal Bridges gives them another versatile piece who can shoot, cut, and make plays. OG Anunoby's two-way impact fits seamlessly into any system, and Jalen Brunson, despite being the primary creator, will benefit enormously from playing in a system that generates easier looks and reduces the burden on him to create magic out of nothing possession after possession. What came through loud and clear from the Sportcenter coverage is that this isn't just about wins and losses, though those obviously matter. This is about establishing a sustainable culture and system that can evolve and grow. Brown's collaborative approach means players will continue developing, understanding their roles more clearly, and contributing at higher levels. The improved communication should translate to better in-game adjustments and more resilient performances when things get difficult. That's what went down on Sportcenter last night, and honestly, I can't remember being this excited about a coaching change since, well, maybe ever for this franchise. The early returns suggest Mike Brown isn't just changing how the Knicks play basketball, he's changing who they are as an organization.